State University have had our voices silenced and our disagreement with President Crow's administration violently oppressed. We will be silent no longer. Today we will be covering the university's use of violence and disciplinary action to silence student voices. Elected student representatives, students affected by the recent violent events, members of the faculty and staff at the heart of our institution, and members of the broader community ASU serves will be telling their side of the encampment story, sharing the harmful and damaging effects of ASU's response, and calling for ASU to drop the charges. We begin with a land acknowledgement to show solidarity with the struggles of the indigenous communities ASU impacts. We acknowledge the stewardship and sovereignty of the 22 Native nations that have inhabited these lands since time immemorial and continue to live on the lands we now call Arizona. Arizona State University's 4 campuses are located in the Salt River Valley on ancestral territories of indigenous nations, including the Acumel Adoham and Peeposh Indian communities, whose care and keeping of these lands allow us to be here today. We know that on their own, land acknowledgements are insufficient, and it is our duty to listen to the unique demands of local indigenous communities and create tangible action and change for decolonization and re-indigenization. Joining us today are diverse members of our campus community, including ASU students, faculty, and staff. Also joining us are representatives from organizations in our greater community. The community our institution's charter mandates it to serve. These organizations include the Arizona Muslim Alliance, the Muslim American Society of Arizona, the Muslim Student Association, Council on American Islamic Relations of Arizona, and the Islamic Community Center of Tempe. We, as students of this university, have organized this press conference to share our firsthand experiences of the violent and punitive response sanctioned by ASU administration against the peaceful encampment last weekend. Here are the facts. Friday morning, a network of activist organizations led by ASU students established a peaceful encampment as a protest on the lawn behind us. Despite 3 early arrests, the encampment featured dancing, drum circles, and chants of solidarity. The encampment received a deluge of donated food, water, and resources from the community to keep the demonstrators safe and hydrated. Late Friday night and early Saturday morning, police forces, including ASU PD, Tempe PD, Arizona State Troopers, and Maricopa County Sheriffs, donned riot gear, descended upon the encampment and forced the demonstrators out. These police forces arrested 72 demonstrators, including at least 25 ASU students. The police inflicted disproportionate violence on demonstrators of color, including forcibly removing hijabs and conducting extra invasive searches. All of this while assisted by university-sanctioned student vigilantes in throwing away donated and private student property. In the days since, the university has pressed charges of trespassing and enforced disciplinary measures on the arrested students, including revoking access to their own dorm rooms and prohibiting them from contacting their own professors to finish their final exams and academic coursework. The disciplinary measures were not communicated ahead of time, but made up after the arrests had happened. Rather than engage in dialogue, these ASU administrators chose to send in overwhelming militarized police forces to crush and apprehend students who were driven to demonstrate by a university administration that gives them no real voice. The use of violence and institutional discipline to disrupt a peaceful student demonstration violates students' constitutionally protected rights to free speech and assembly on public property. ASU, an institution of learning which claims to encourage us to put our studies into action, has betrayed us, the students, and the communities it serves. We demand that ASU drop the charges against all demonstrators and withdraw disciplinary action against the students. Our speakers today will tell how ASU's violent response to a peaceful demonstration has affected us all. Our first speaker will be an alumna of Arizona State University.
Assalamu alaikum, peace and blessings be upon you all. My name is Tertil al-Imam. I am a member of the Sudanese Diaspora Network and an alumna of Arizona State University, where I received both my bachelor's and master's degree. Today, I stand before you with a heavy heart and a fierce determination to address a grave injustice that has shaken the very foundation of our democratic principles. On Friday, April 26th, we witnessed a disturbing incident at Arizona State University, where peaceful protesters were met with violence and aggression by authorities. Let me be unequivocal. This is unacceptable. It is a blatant violation of our First Amendment rights, a betrayal of our shared values, and a stain on the legacy of our institution. The right to peacefully assemble and protest is enshrined in our Constitution, precisely because it is a cornerstone of democracy. It is a sacred expression of our freedom of speech, our right to dissent, and our commitment to social justice. When peaceful protesters are met with force, intimidation, or brutality, it not only silences their voices, but undermines the very fabric of our democracy. We cannot turn a blind eye. We cannot look away to the use of excessive force and violence against our own students, our community members, who were exercising their constitutional rights in a peaceful and lawful manner. We cannot justify or excuse the actions of those who chose to suppress dissent through fear, intimidation, and violence. The images and reports from Arizona State University are a stark reminder that the struggle for justice, equality, and human rights are far from over. We must confront the uncomfortable truth that systematic injustice persists in our society, including within our own institutions of higher learning. As educators, administrators, and leaders, we have a moral and ethical obligation to uphold the values of democracy, free speech, and nonviolent protest. We must create an environment where all voices are heard, respected, and valued, regardless of their viewpoints or backgrounds. To punish these students, to threaten their academic careers, and jeopardize their futures would not only be unjust, but would also send a chilling message that dissent and activism are not welcome or tolerated within our academic institutions. It would undermine the very values of free expressions, critical thinking, and civic engagement that we seek to instill in our students. These students, driven by a passion for justice and a commitment to social change, exercise their constitutional rights in a manner that was both lawful and peaceful. Their actions were not motivated by malice or disruption, but by a genuine desire to make their voices heard and bring attention to the ongoing genocide happening in Gaza. I appeal to the administration of Arizona State University to consider the long-term impact of their decisions on these students' lives and futures. Expelling them would not only be a disproportionate response, but could also have lasting consequences.
Of the 72 arrests made this weekend, 80% had no university affiliation. This is false. This claim was made several hours before the police even checked our statuses. In fact, 27 students were arrested along with several staff members and alumni. Many more community members were also arrested with us, and we are immensely grateful for their support and commitment. While we were being stormed by police for allegedly trespassing on our own campus, agitators also congregated on the lawn. These agitators were instigating and attempting to provoke conflict. However, they were not arrested, detained, or even addressed by police. In fact, these Zionists got to join the police in disposing of our property and community-donated supplies, a total waste of resources that directly defies ASU's sustainability goals and vision. In the meantime, the constitutional religious rights of 4 Muslim women were violated as ASU Police and Maricopa County Sheriffs officers removed their hijabs upon arresting them. It is important to note that these Zionists have not faced any similar consequences and have even flaunted their involvement on the news. This is a clear double standard exhibited by Arizona's police departments. In addition, this was not the only act of gross misconduct we faced at the hands of ASU PD, the Arizona State Troopers, and the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office. Firstly, ASU PD hindered medical staff from tending to a protester who needed medical attention as they were being arrested. Secondly, there was inequitable treatment of the arrestees while in custody. In the first holding facility, which was ill-equipped from being out of service for over 3 years, one holding cell group was allowed multiple phone calls, while the majority were told that the phones, quote, didn't work, unquote. Because of this, some had to wait until they arrived at the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office over 15 hours after they were arrested before they were allowed their phone call. Additionally, face masks and personal protective equipment were taken away from some arrestees, but not others. Officers said these would be replaced, but ultimately weren't, while multiple people were held together in small rooms. Had one of us been immunocompromised, this act could have been fatal. We are not the first, nor will we be the last, to face excessive retribution from Arizona's police forces. This is but one of many examples of deeper issues with policing in our state. The property of ASU was built upon Otham and Peeposh lands, just as we stand in solidarity to the displaced people of Gaza. We stand with the many communities of color who have been displaced and brutalized by ASU and police forces across Arizona. Additionally, the university is being extremely unreasonable in its accusations of code of conduct violations. Graduate students and student workers are having their accounts and stipends withheld, and active students who are not currently taking classes have been suspended. Moreover, despite the judge ruling that 3 protesters were arrested without probable cause and none have been formally charged, ASU has still suspended all students arrested on grounds of committing a crime on campus property. Just as finals begin and graduation ceremonies are set to take place, our suspensions bar us from any participation in classwork or contacting our professors. This has left our futures suspended in time with no promise of our degrees or graduations. ASU offered little to no guidance to navigate this suspension. It is only thanks to the work of organizations such as the the United Campus Workers and CAIR, CAIR, that we are able to find community support regarding our academic status. ASU is destroying our investments in our education for exercising our constitutional rights to speak up against genocide. Most troubling, students living on campus have been barred from accessing their housing and jobs. This expulsion was completely unexpected and unwarranted, and it left many scrambling to find places to stay. Because the university gave them little to no resources and alternatives, the only resources available to them were their peers. We offered each other whatever spaces we had, from spare bedrooms to couches. This is an excessively harsh response to an alleged code of conduct violation, and we are once again demonstrating that it is the community who cares, not this institution. We, the students, would like to further emphasize that we are protesting not in spite of the university, but because of it. As an institution of higher education, ASU equipped us with the tools and knowledge to learn and stand up for what we believe in, to care for those who are different from us, and to participate actively in the world. As per ASU charter, it, quote, assumes fundamental responsibility for the economic, social, cultural, and overall health of the communities it serves, unquote. From the lessons we've learned, we are proud to be a part of a history of student movements fighting for justice and to follow in the steps of those that spoke out for civil rights against the Vietnam War and South African apartheid. These movements are seen as the forefront of social change and justice, and this will be no different. We come to ASU to say, we are not outsiders and disruptors that have infiltrated this community. We are a community formed by the university itself. This is our movement, and we claim it as such. Most importantly, while the news have focused on the police brutalizing and traumatizing student protesters, over 100 mass graves have been found in Gaza Strip. filled with countless bodies of civilians that have been massacred by the Israeli military. The children that have survived the genocide thus far are begging American taxpayers to stop paying for the bombs that are killing their families and friends. As of April 30th, Israel has killed at least 35,027 people in Gaza and the occupied West Bank, and more than 23,000 of them being women and children. More than 82,500 people have been wounded or injured, and at least 8,000 still remain missing. Furthermore, of the 12 universities in Gaza, all have been reduced to rubble, thus robbing the people of Gaza of culture, community, and higher education. Even if peace came tomorrow, the destruction of Gaza's universities is a wound that will continue to bleed for generations. Our hearts ache for the grief and loss of Gaza, not just of lives and homes, but of safety, stability, and family. This is not self-defense, this is genocide. Let us be clear. It is our American tax dollars enabling this genocide. Israel has been the largest cumulative recipient of American aid since its inception, with 15% of Israel's military budget being paid for by U.S. taxpayers, in addition to the countless arms and munitions contracts that exist between American companies and the Israeli government. More specifically, we know that ASU invests its money in many of these companies, along with other Israeli interests. We cannot, in good conscience, stand by while our tuition money is being used to slaughter our peers. We would like to direct all of our love and strength to the people of Gaza. We see you, we stand with you, we have not forgotten you or turned our backs. Once again, we join in solidarity with university students across the U.S. and internationally to demand that our universities take an official stand against Israel's genocide of Palestine. We ask that ASU disclose all investments made with student tuition money, and for ASU to divest from all companies and partnerships tied to the state of Israel and its occupation of Palestine. Free Palestine.
Our next speaker will be reading a statement on behalf of the father of one of the arrested students.
Unfortunately, the father couldn't be here today, but I do want to kind of preface his statement with, would that we had the time to hear from all the students about their personal story, why they got involved last week, why they do not support the genocide, why ASU is culpable. And so I would just preface that, and here's some of the values that this father is talking about concerning his daughter. Good morning. I am the proud father of one of the students who was arrested, who exhibited bravery and empathy by participating in the pro-Palestinian protest on the ASU campus. My daughter's actions were not impulsive. They stem from her deep-rooted values and compassion for fellow humans, qualities I have always encouraged her to embrace. As a family, we chose Arizona State University for its commitment to community engagement and its encouragement of students to make a positive impact in the world.
The following statement comes from MFA candidate in poetry, Zulema Dominguez. We are told to think critically, but not too critically. Never so critically that we are driven to action. For that would challenge the very pillars upon which this university stands on unceded Papayash and O'odham lands.
We can't hear you!
Using my labor and your tuition to support Israel, a nation state that for the past 200 days and 75 years has been equating its right to self-determination with an imagined right to carry out genocide, a mass murder of tens of thousands of Palestinians, nearly half of which are children, entire lineages decimated. If, as Nina Simone urged us, an artist's duty is to reflect the times, then as the Black Panthers and the Brown Berets and every liberation effort across and in between has and continues to urge us. It is a student's duty to question and challenge the powers which dictate the times, so long as injustice persists. It is the oppressed, the wretched of the earth, the historically exploited and displaced that are burdened with the task of having to resist, through concurrently blessed with the seeds of new worlds and the opportunity to sow and water them. ASU's silencing of students should perhaps come at no surprise, given the university's record of hosting U.S.-Israeli cyber security workshops, and the fact that it operates in a state where the Treasurer's Office currently has $15 million invested in Israel bonds at an institution that claims to want to protect its students' safety. The ASU Chief of Police, Michael Thompson, held a knife in the hand on campus grounds, destroying personal property and intimidating students. And on the very same lawn where unarmed, peaceful student protesters were arrested, a separate group of counter-protesters were permitted to gather and verbally harass and destroy the property of other students. ASU, thank you for making clear which students' safety you prioritize over others. Let me spare no lack of clarity. You continue to exhibit gross inequality in the way students, calling for a ceasefire and an end to the occupation of Palestine, are treated, versus those who have either no issue or a vested financial interest in maintaining the pro-Israeli status quo. On Monday, September 6, 1985, the Arizona Board of Regents ordered both U of A and ASU to, quote, divest their holdings in companies doing business in South Africa. Roughly 3.4 million following waves of student-led anti-apartheid activism carried out on both campuses. So I ask, Michael Crow and the Arizona Board of Regents, what is stopping you now? Rather than divest from Israel, rather than listen to students, you suspend students' organizations that express support for Palestine, such as Mecca to ASU, and conduct mass arrests. In direct contradiction to the initial court hearings, you force isolation and exile upon students arrested at the encampment, thinking your violent tactics are stronger than our community care. You think you operate behind closed doors, but this land and these students and this moment in history will remember you. Your oppressive actions, no doors could ever contain that. Just the same as no form of retaliation will ever break our spirits or our resistance. We will never be silent until Palestine is free. Thank you.
Our next speaker is an elected representative from our student government at Arizona State University.
My name is Kelly Bauer. I'm currently finishing my term as the Assembly President of the Graduate Student Government, known as GPSA. As per Bylaw 2.1.7.8, duties of the GPSA Assembly President shall be to, among other things, make official statements on behalf of GPSA as necessary. It may seem silly to cite a bylaw before speaking, but I've been in student government long enough to know that you can't trust the administration. I also watched the live stream on Friday night and saw what happened to all of the students who chose to speak out. I have been an officer in GPSA for the past 3 years, serving as the Vice President of Campus Engagement and an assembly member of the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. Before that, I was the co-president of the Graduate Women's Association, an officer in the Graduate Scholars of English Association, and a member of the Multicultural Solidarity Coalition. I mention all these roles that I've held to highlight my involvement in student organizations at ASU for the past 5 years. One thing I've noticed and would like to share with all of you today is how ASU has become a more hostile place for student organizing on campus, and how the code of conduct has been weaponized against student activists, not just now, but in the past 5 years. After George Floyd was killed by police in 2020, the Multicultural Solidarity Coalition was finally heard by the administration after 4 years of already demanding that a multicultural center be created on each of ASU's 4 campuses. After a year of negotiating with administration, they repurposed 1 room on each campus and called them the Multicultural Communities of Excellence, or MCOE. However, the rest of our demands in our 20-page proposal were never even entertained. Some of those demands included defunding the ASU Police, banning Border Patrol and ICE from campus, but those were never even considered. It only took one incident in the space for the ASU administration to slap code of conduct violations on 3 of our lead organizers and derail our movement. Although we continued to meet for the rest of the year, the administration eventually stopped responding to our emails and the meetings stopped altogether, ultimately removing students from the process of creating multicultural centers on campus altogether. The MCOE space, which now does exist on all 4 campuses, is one of the most highly surveilled rooms on campus. It requires student IDs to enter the space. The doors lock at 7 p.m. and it is filled to the brim with staff offices and student workers to monitor the space. Fast forward to 2024, and we see the ASU administration weaponizing code of conduct violations to shut down another student movement. This practice must end. Students have the same rights to free speech and freedom of association. Being enrolled at ASU should not strip us of those rights. The GPSA Assembly, which is the legislative branch of our student government, is made up of elected representatives from every school and college on all 4 campuses, with a total of 53 seated assembly members. Because we represent all 30,000 graduate students, we are an incredibly diverse group and do not agree unanimously on almost anything. In fact, just this semester, the Assembly has voted on and passed legislation to participate in the boycott, divest, sanction campaign with our $1.4 million budget of student government funds. However, this legislation was vetoed. It was then reintroduced, passed again, and vetoed again. While it has become clear that the student government has not reached a consensus on BDS, as student leaders, it is still our responsibility to advocate on behalf of our entire student body. We recognize and wish to uphold every student's constitutional right to speak and assemble. We also expect that ASU would do the same. I'm here today to advocate on behalf of the 5 graduate students who were also arrested last week because they have been unfairly banned from campus and cannot be here today to speak for themselves. And let me be very clear, it is not the legal system or the courts that have banned students from campus. It is ASU. The court allowed students to return to campus for student-related activities. However, ASU informed them of their interim suspensions that not only barred them from returning to campus, but also housing, participating in their classes, and even contacting their professors. This is unacceptable to respond this way to students who are exercising their First Amendment rights. ASU is the vanguard of the neoliberal university. It is a hostile environment for many students who are afraid to express themselves for fear of repercussions like these punitive measures taken against our fellow students. Many international students live in fear of code of conduct violations and don't speak up. I know this because another student leader in GPSA has asked me to read this statement on their behalf. After following the discussion on pro-Palestinian movements on campuses around the country, I am deeply saddened and angry regarding how legislative entities from both federal, state, and university governments are reacting and treating students. Before coming to the United States, I always thought this country was a platform for free speech, a land of freedom for individual voices, and with the right to express opinions, protest, and contribute in the decision-making. However, my thoughts and beliefs have changed. It is very unfortunate to see how many students have been arrested and that they aren't given a platform to express their opinions and solidarity with thousands of lives lost in this brutal oppression. I am saddened that students' right to free expression have been violated by the university and student government bodies. If we don't have a platform to express our opinions within our own campus and student government bodies, how do we expect to be included in the broader discussions? It is a dire warning for our future. Just as I condemn every life lost in the October 7th incident, I am also against the killing of 34,000 innocent Palestinian lives. So here I am, expressing my solidarity with the sovereignty of Palestinian people and free Palestine, shaming the legislative authorities and ASU for the misinterpretation of our student voices and denying our right to free expression. This is me again. Every year that I've been here, ASU has made it harder and harder to organize and build power as students. Last year, for example, they deleted our rosters, so we had to rebuild our membership back from zero. They said this was a one-time thing, but this year they've done it again. And on top of that, they made the decision that all advisors for student organizations now have to be faculty, not staff, leaving several organizations without advisors for their organizations, thus stripping them of their official recognition. They also went even so far as to suspend Mecha de ASU just a few months ago, which students are demanding be reinstated. The administration tries to turn us against each other by refusing to meet with students who aren't in registered organizations or saying they'll only speak with elected student leaders. Well, I'm an elected student leader, and I say enough is enough. The administration cannot continue to divide and conquer us. What we saw on campus last week is not the end of student organizing. It is the beginning of a new chapter. Now, more than ever, we need to organize. Create your student group. Run for an elected government position at your university. Join your union. Let's make 2024 a year that ASU administration will never forget. Let this be the year that students flip the script on them and stop rubber stamping their bullshit. Let them know that we are not afraid and we will not back down. Today we say, reinstate Mecha de ASU and stop investigations of all pro-Palestinian student organizations. Drop the code of conduct violations against all of the students who were arrested. Let them finish their semester and let them graduate. And again, echoing from 2020, defund the ASU Police. Why do universities need their own police department? That is a sixth sign of the United States and where things are at. And lastly, but definitely not least, if U of A can get President Robbins to resign, why can't we get Crow? Last Friday, we saw what we're capable of. This fall, let's come back even stronger.
Hello everyone.
My name is Crystal Jackson. I am a Jewish faculty member here at ASU in the School of Social Transformation. As a Jewish person who is also anti-genocide, I can tell you that opposing genocide is not anti-Semitic. On Friday, ASU called the police on its own. ASU called police on peacefully protesting community members, including students, faculty, staff, friends and family of those who were protesting, alumni. ASU has since hired 24-hour private security to sit at all four corners of the fenced-off lawn. The false narrative that we've heard from administration, as you've heard echoed here today, the false narrative from administration does not reflect the facts. And this may be because ASU knows that it has failed to uphold its own guiding charter, our beacon. If, per our charter, we are to be measured by whom we include and exclude, ASU is sending a clear message that they exclude certain students who exercise their right to protest and those who put into action what they are learning in our classes about the social world. I, along with many faculty at ASU, teach about the phenomenon that protesters are drawing attention to: settler colonialism, apartheid, genocide, violence against women, violence against children, and also activism, liberation, and resistance. What is the role of education if not liberation? If ASU truly supported faculty, staff, and students, we would not have seen the arrests of protesters Friday night or received the message from ASU administration that they sent around to faculty on Saturday. ASU has failed at upholding its fundamental responsibility for the overall health of the communities it serves per its own charter. Instead of innovatively protecting the right to protest, protesters were met with violence. Instead of innovating new and novel ways to ensure that dissent and protest are protected, the hallmarks of democracy that ASU claims to encourage and care for, instead of protecting those students, or instead of innovating new ways of engagement as other colleges are doing across the university, ASU, or across the country, ASU chose a path of violence. Let's also not forget that ASU learned about the racism and violence of police intervention and interactions from the summer 2020 protests. They knew what would happen if they called police. They have also hired people like myself who study abolitionism, activism, and social transformation, but yet they do not engage with us or our knowledge or abilities. The protest on Friday is part of a current national movement of college encampments drawing attention to U.S. complicity and universities' complicity with Israel's genocidal violence in Gaza. The protesters are also part of a 60-plus year history of student-led movements calling out apartheid, war, and genocide. Over 40,000 people and counting have been killed in Gaza, largely women and children. Whole family lines are decimated. No universities are left standing. Israel is starving, bombing, and killing people. If ASU cannot self-reflect on its role in violence, what chance does it have to be a true leader in innovating social futures? In closing, I want to echo what students themselves are calling for and demanding. BDS, reinstate MECHA, no cops on campus, drop all charges against students, revoke those suspensions and any punitive measures immediately. And I encourage ASU to also issue a public apology, and I urge ASU administration to recommit themselves to our own charter with a people first approach. Thank you.